Writing's a lot like driving. Everybody thinks they're a good driver, but if you've ever been out on the roads, you know that's not true. It's the same with writing. Most people think they can do it well, or at least recognize excellent writing. But there are a lot of authors who end up regretting asking for feedback once the flood of nonsense comments start rolling in. You want to avoid this situation at all costs. So today I'm going to show you the best way to get feedback on your writing. It starts by getting the right feedback from the right people. Those people are people who are experienced writers or editors, people who are experts in your specific field, or people who are in the exact audience you want your book to reach. So let's break down each category. Number 1, experienced writers or editors. So this one's obvious. Someone who has a lot of experience in writing and editing can almost certainly help you with your manuscript and give useful feedback. Now keep in mind that many people vastly overestimate their experience and ability in these areas. Many people think because they write emails all day long, it qualifies them as a skilled writer or editor, when in fact they aren't at all. This is why at Scribe we have a rigorous testing process before we even begin to work with editors or outliners and publishing managers. Even if they are employed full-time as writers or editors, we don't just assume they're skilled. We want to see their work, and then we judge their abilities by the quality of that work. And what happens as a result of these tests is that we reject about 98% of the people who apply to work with us, all of whom have legitimate writing or editing experience. That should tell you the general quality of the experts out there. And I bring this up because we've seen so many authors give their manuscript to friends who claim to be great editors and great writers, only to see their friends give truly awful notes that leave the author feeling confused and hurt, and it just ends up creating more problems with the book. So here's the harsh truth about getting feedback, is that most people you know have no idea what they're talking about, especially in regards to books and writing. And getting feedback from those people is harmful. Number 2, someone in your field or niche. Asking someone who shares your field of expertise for feedback can actually be really helpful. For example, if you're a financial advisor and you give your book to 2 of your trusted financial advisor friends to read, they can give you a perspective on the book that can be helpful and unique. Now, the key to making this work is to ask them what specifically to focus on that they know well. If you give them your manuscript, ask them to read it as a financial advisor, checking to make sure you haven't made any factual errors and that clients will understand it, and that your tone is appropriate for your profession. Things like that. Basically, you're asking them to apply their decades of experience to your manuscript. That works really well. Number 3, someone in your audience. So if your book is about how to build an app business, for example, and you give it to 2 friends who are trying to build app businesses, that's perfect. They can tell you what helped them in the book, which sections they wanted more content in, and where they got confused or lost. That sort of feedback is invaluable. Just be very careful who you select and give them very specific instructions. If you pick someone in your primary audience, make sure to tell them what you want to know. For instance, say, I'd love you to read my manuscript and tell me where it loses you, or where it doesn't make sense, or where it's hard to follow. All feedback is wrong. You need to be careful with this feedback. The best piece of advice I've ever heard about getting feedback on a book is this: all feedback is wrong somehow. Your job is to figure out what's right about it and only pay attention to that. Now, what this means is that most people are giving you feedback based on how they feel, and they almost certainly don't know how to fix the issue. This quote from author Neil Gaiman sums it up perfectly. When people tell you something's wrong or doesn't work for them, they're almost always right. When they tell you exactly what they think is wrong and how to fix it, they are almost always wrong. His point is that the reader may know that your book isn't working for them in some way, and you should listen to that critique. However, their ideas for solutions are probably bad because they have no experience solving writing problems. If someone in your audience says something isn't working for them, listen to their comments, but use your own ideas and knowledge to fix the problem. because no one knows your book and your subject matter better than you do. Here are the worst things to do and how to fix them. There are a few things you should never, ever do in terms of feedback. Do not put some pages out on Facebook or Twitter for feedback. This is a disaster. You will deeply regret it. We have never seen this work for anyone. There are so many reasons that this goes wrong that it's hard to list them all out, but just think of it this way. If you wanted advice on clothes, would you stand in the middle of an amusement park and ask for the opinions of people who just walked by? Of course not. Well, asking for an opinion of your writing on social media is basically the same thing. I cannot stress this enough. Do not do this. Instead, pick specific people to ask for help. There's nothing wrong with asking specific people for specific forms of feedback. Like I mentioned before, the keyword here is specific. Experts at writing or experts in your field or people in your audience. That's the key. Do not give your manuscript to someone without asking for specific feedback. Don't throw your manuscript to someone and say, hey, take a look at this and let me know what you think. Again, this is a recipe for all kinds of wasted time and effort. You have to be specific in your ask. There are definitely situations where asking for feedback is both appropriate and helpful, but always say something like, hey, can you tell me if you think my voice in the book comes off as too unprofessional for an accountant? Should you let friends and family give feedback on your manuscript? Be very careful with asking friends and family to give you feedback. We have seen a lot of manuscripts ruined by friends and family trying to be nice. What happens is they feel like they're supposed to give feedback, so they just mention things that occur to them. And most of these things are well-intentioned, but a lot of their advice is not only wrong, it's also toxic and counterproductive. It's this dynamic that can send authors into a spiral. So here's the bottom line. Unless your friends and family fit into categories that are mentioned in this video, or you're okay with ignoring them, don't let them give you feedback. If you want more helpful writing tips, check out one of these Scribe Book School videos.